of science. It's not the smallest mention in the Holy Bible. If the sacred scribes meant to teach men astronomy, then why did they leave it out?
God is known by nature in his works, and by doctrine in his revealed word. Galileo Galilei, a devoted Christian, did not want to separate the worlds of religion and science, but wanted to bring them together in one holy marriage. He was condemned in 1633 because his views contravened with the scriptures and were not accepted by the Catholic Church. His pleas for them to understand his discoveries of the solar system fell on deaf ears. As a religious man, his experiments didn't attempt to disprove the Bible, but show the work of God.
During this time, the Catholic Church was struggling. The Protestant Reformation encouraged people to challenge the Church. Interpretations of the scriptures was a sensitive topic, so when Galileo did just that, the Church condemned him and re-established some of that power. Galileo Galilei was born in Italy on February 4th, 1564. Early on, people noticed his scientific skills. By age 19, he had discovered isochronism of the pendulum, and at 22, he invented the hydrostatic balance. By 25, Galileo began lecturing at the University of Pisa. Over the years, he gained a great reputation as a magnificent scientist and would soon gain the title Father of Experimental Physics. In 1543, Nicholas Copernicus published Revolutions of Celestial Orbs, which described the sun at the center of the universe instead of the Earth. Galileo, in the mid-1590s, found that Copernicus was correct. In 1609, when Galilei perfected the telescope, he began observing our solar system. Spectacular sightings of the extraterrestrial orbs revealed the moons of Jupiter and the hills and valleys of our moon, as well as many other things. Galileo's findings confirmed the Copernicus theory. He, however, only shared his findings with a few of his close friends. Eventually, he decided to share his research with the rest of the world. The first of his distributions would be a 1613 Letters on Solar Spots, which openly spoke of Copernican views. The first of the critics would be a Dominican in Florence, Italy, Father Niccolò Lorini. He stated the Copernican perspectives contravened the Holy Scriptures that say that the Earth is the center of the universe. Galileo responded in December of the same year with a letter to Castelli, which stated that the scriptures should sometimes be more figuratively inferred. Galileo thought his letter would slow some of the hostility, but it had the opposite effect. February 7th, 1516, Father Lorini sent a modified version of the letter to Castelli to the Roman Inquisition. He wrote the document, quote, contains many propositions which appear to be suspicious or presumptuous, as when it asserts that the language of the Holy Scripture does not mean what it seems to mean. Lorini wanted Galileo's ideas to be discredited. He derived support from Father Tommaso Cassini, who traveled to Rome to stand before the Holy Office and unveil Galileo's crimes. From the beginning, this condemnation was questionable. Giorgio de Santiella said that, quote, the whole deposition is such an interminable mass of twists and innuendos and double talk that a summary does no justice to it. Galileo, cognizant of those going against him, asked a friend to send his letters to Robert Bellarmine, and if feasible, Pope Paul V. Sadly, Cardinal Bellarmine replied that he was no friend of novelties. Bellarmine saw the Copernican system as a threat to social order. In a letter dated April 12, 1615, Bellarmine said that he could express the Copernican system hypothetically and not absolutely. Galileo's letter to the Grand Duchess, published in 1615, pleaded that his ideas not be doomed, quote, without understanding it, without hearing it, without even having seen it, as noted in this clip.
Galileo's outspoken letter to Madama Christina, intended to resolve the discrepancies between science and the Bible, came to be seen as an assault on the Bible itself.
Galileo's main statements: 1. The sun is stationary at the center of the solar system, and 2. The Earth is not the center of the solar system and moves as a whole, also according to its daily routine, were regarded as foolish and absurd, as well as formally heretical. When he was summoned to Cardinal Bellarmine in late February 1616, he was admonished, and according to Cardinal Orgaius, remained silent with all of his science, and thus showed that no less praiseworthy than his mind was his pious disposition. A false injunction file stated that Galileo was by the said commissioner commanded and enjoined to relinquish altogether the said opinion that the sun is the center of the world and immovable, and that the earth moves, nor further to hold, teach, or defend it in any way whatsoever, verbally or in writing. Otherwise, proceedings would be taken against him by the Holy Office, which injunction the said Galileo acquiesced and promised to obey. 17 years later, Galileo would be brought before the Inquisition for violating this false injunction. Galileo continued working before his 1633 trials. In December 1629, he wrote the 500-page dialogue. The new pope, who was warmer towards Galileo, said that this work could be published if his views were more hypothetical. August of the same year, Niccolò Riccardi felt that the writing wasn't hypothetical enough and encouraged more edits. After some persuading, Riccardi published Galileo's defining piece. Dialogue concerning the two chief world systems was officially published February 1632. And sold out quickly. Rome soon suspended the publications of the novel. The Pope, very upset Galileo had disobeyed the requirements, felt that he had been deceived. Galilei, also angered, thought his ideas were being thwarted by the Church's bureaucracy. After all, he'd been allowed to write and publish the Copernican ideas. In September, the Pope gave the dilemma to the Roman Inquisition, who said Galileo disobeyed the false 1616 injunction. October of 1632, Galileo was formally summoned to Rome. Niccolò Riccardi said that he would stand on trial before 10 cardinals. He also informed him that the merits had already been decided on the matter. On April 12, 1633, Galileo submitted to the Holy Office. The Commissionary General said that during the proceedings he would be imprisoned within the Inquisition building. This was detrimental news to the elderly, weak, and ill Galileo. After taking oath, Galileo's depositions took place. Cardinal Barberini persuaded the commissionary to convince Galileo of his wrongdoings. A letter written by the commissionary Fra Renzolla told of his conversation with Galileo. Quote, I entered into discourse with Galileo yesterday afternoon, and after many arguments and rejoinders had passed between us, by God's grace, I brought him to a full sense so that he clearly recognized he had erred and gone too far in his book. The trial moved into its final stages. The cardinals formally voted on his sentence. Several argued that he should be incarcerated, while others said his work should be edited and republished. Ultimately, the cardinals' vote was for Galileo to be imprisoned and for his dialogue to be prohibited. The morning of June 22nd, 1633, Galileo Galilei entered into the Inquisition building, knelt, and listened to his sentence. Whereas you, Galileo, your grave and pernicious errors and transgressions may not remain altogether unpunished. We ordain that the book of the Dialogues of Galileo Galilei be prohibited. We condemn you to the formal prison of this holy office during our pleasure, and by way of salutary penance we enjoin that for 3 years you come to repeat once a week at the 7 penitential psalms, reserving to ourselves the liberty to moderate, commute, or take off, whole or in part, the aforesaid penalties and penance. And so, we say, pronounce, sentence, declare, ordain, and reserve this, and in any other better way and form which we can and may rightfully employ. The formal document was signed by 7 of the 10 cardinals. In conclusion, Galileo, despite his findings, was falsely condemned because of a church that held fast to the traditional teachings and interpretations, a false injunction, and Galileo's own stubbornness, which would lead to his ultimate downfall. This condemnation was not only unjust, but cruel, because the elderly dying Galileo, fully blind at this point, was imprisoned for a short amount of time, then placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. The injustice wasn't corrected until 1922, when the church formally apologized for the Galileo incident.
Galileo Galilei once said, "The Bible teaches men how to go to heaven, and not how the heavens go, and that it would be a terrible detriment for the souls if people found themselves convinced by proof of something that it was then made a sin to believe." I believe this quote describes the courageous stand Galileo Galilei took.